With the success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, I think it's super likely for Nintendo to produce more movies with their huge lineup of franchises. The Legend of Zelda is one of Nintendo's most well-known franchises behind Super Mario, so I think it's definitely likely for a movie based on this franchise to happen. The question remains though, what would a film based off this franchise look like? With me being the Nintendo Cinematic Universe guy here on YouTube, I only think it would be appropriate for me to give my prediction on what this movie could look like. This video is part 3 of a series I'm doing here on the channel, where I create the Nintendo Cinematic Universe, so if you end up enjoying this video, consider also checking out the other videos in this series. With that being said, I'm the biggest nub on YouTube, Crazytendo, and this is my pitch for the Legend of Zelda movie. When it comes to films, most people go check out a movie to see what the story offers. With that in mind, plot is the most important thing when it comes to a film, so you'd want to make the plot engaging so people look forward to how the movie plays out. So then the question begs, what will this movie's plot look like? The movie is going to start out with a scene looking at the origins of the Triforce. The Triforce is a powerful relic left behind by the 3 goddesses who created the world of Hyrule. It has 3 pieces that represent different traits: courage, wisdom, and power. When all these pieces are together, the Triforce can grant the wielder the power to wish for whatever they'd like, which can be extremely dangerous if in the wrong hands. After this scene, the movie really begins, taking you through the town of Kokiri Village, the home of Link, who will be the main protagonist of the film. Link is a young warrior trying to find his purpose, as at this time, he doesn't know what life has in store for him. As he gets ready for the day, Mito, the town's leader, tells Link the Great Deku Tree, the guardian of the forest, calls for Link's presence. Link grabs his sword and shield, then makes his way to the Great Deku Tree. Link arrives to the Male Kokiri Forest, where the Great Deku Tree lies. The tree greets Link and tells him thank you for coming at such a short notice. It then explains to Link that darkness is upon the world of Hyrule, and that a great evil is seeking out the pieces of the Triforce. Link asks the tree why it needs him, and the tree responds by telling him that Link is the only one with the power to stop the evil, so it's up to him to save Hyrule. Link tells the tree he'll do anything to protect Hyrule and asks where he must go. The tree tells him he must make his way to Hyrule Castle and meet up with the princess, and from there his adventure will truly begin. The Great Deku Tree then opens and tells Link to walk through, and as he goes, the tree wishes him luck for the sake of Hyrule. We then exit that scene and see Ganondorf for the first time, as he enters Zora's domain, the home place of the Zora tribe. Ganon demands to speak with the king, King Zora, and to speak with him right away. King Zora approaches Ganon and asks him what he wants, and Ganon tells him he knows exactly what he wants. King Zora tells Ganon he cannot have the piece of courage, and signals his army to attack Ganon. While Ganon was surprised at first by the assault, he easily destroys Zora's army and makes his way towards the king again, telling him he made a mistake trying to fight him. Dorphan, the second in command for King Zora, goes after Ganon to protect his king, but Ganon grabs him by the neck and throws him to the side, leaving him badly injured. Ganon comes face to face with King Zora, who tries protecting himself from Ganon before being killed by a devastating blow from Ganon. Ganon looks at the body of King Zora and sees he was carrying the piece of courage on him, so he takes it from his body before leaving Zora's domain on his quest to find the other 2 pieces. Link arrives at Hyrule Castle and meets up with Princess Zelda. Zelda tells him she was expecting him and for him to follow her into the castle. They make their way into the castle and she tells him that a great evil is seeking the Triforce, and he tells her he's been told that. She then explains to him that the person seeking the Triforce is Ganondorf, the Demon King, and that if he gets all the pieces, he could destroy Hyrule. Just then, a castle guard comes in to inform Zelda that there's word Ganon has acquired the first piece of the Triforce from Zora's domain, and that he's searching for the other 2 pieces. Zelda thanks the guard for the warning and turns to Link, asking if he's ready to go on a quest. Link replies by saying yes and asking how they'll find the other 2 pieces of the Triforce. Zelda pulls out a map and tells Link this will be their guide to finding the other pieces of the Triforce, and that they must leave now while they have a head start on Ganondorf. Link and Zelda leave the castle and make their way towards the second piece of the Triforce, which is located in Gerudo, the home of Ganondorf. As they enter Gerudo, Zelda tells Link to keep his guard up as Ganon could be anywhere. They eventually come across a dungeon that has the symbol of the piece of power, signifying this is where the piece lies. The 2 of them enter the dungeon cautiously, in case anything is in the dungeon waiting to ambush them. After solving a few puzzles and avoiding some traps, the 2 of them eventually find themselves face to face with the piece of power, and just as they're about to grab it, they hear an evil laughter coming from behind them. Zelda and Link turn around to see Ganondorf emerge from the shadows, who thanks them for leading him to the piece of power. Zelda asks him how he knew they were coming here, and he tells them he overheard the 2 talking about searching for the Triforce pieces when they entered Gerudo, so he decided to follow them from a distance. Link tells Ganon he won't be getting the piece of power and starts going for Ganon. Ganon avoids Link's attack and hits Link with a devastating punch that sends him flying. Ganon then goes towards Zelda, who tries defending herself, and quickly takes care of her and takes the map from her. With there being no one else to stop him, Ganon grabs the piece of power and begins making his way to the final piece of the Triforce. After being badly defeated, Link and Zelda realize that Ganon now has 2 of the 3 pieces of the Triforce, as well as the map to locate the last piece. Link asks how do they stop Ganon, as he is very powerful, and Zelda suggests the 2 of them go to the Temple of Time, as legends say it's home to a powerful weapon that could help with defeating Ganon. Zelda and Link enter the Temple of Time, and as they enter they see a pedestal that should be the holding place of this legendary weapon, but it's nowhere to be seen. On the pedestal is written ancient text that translates to, "If thou wish to call the Master Sword mine, thou must play the instrument of time." Zelda reads this aloud, and instantly knows what this means as she pulls out an ocarina. She turns to Link and tells him this is the instrument described in the writing, and that he must play the ocarina. Link plays the ocarina, and then passes out a few seconds later. We go back to Ganondorf, who is entering Death Mountain. He looks at the map in his hand to make sure this is the right place to find the last piece of the Triforce, the Piece of Wisdom. He looks up to see a temple that has the Piece of Wisdom symbol on it, and he smiles to himself, knowing he's in the right place. Link wakes up with the Master Sword in his hand. Zelda asks him if he's okay, and he tells her he is. Zelda explains to him that after he passed out, Light shone down on him and the Master Sword appeared in his hand. Link tells Zelda that when he was out, he saw something. She asks him what it was, and he tells her he saw a vision of Ganon outside of a temple located on Death Mountain, and that outside of it was the symbol of the Piece of Wisdom. Zelda tells Link she is in no condition to fight Ganon, and that Link must hurry to Death Mountain and stop Ganon before it's too late. Link arrives at the temple in Death Mountain and enters. He looks around a bit before seeing Ganondorf, who is piecing together the pieces of the Triforce. Link charges at Ganon, but is delivered a powerful blow by Ganon as he finally has the Triforce in its true form. Ganon wishes for the powers of a god, but before his wish is granted, Link catches Ganon off guard and makes him drop the Triforce. Ganon grabs his sword and fights Link, taking him down. Ganon recovers the Triforce and once again wishes for the power of a god, and this time his wish is granted. Just when all hope seems lost for Link, the Master Sword starts to glow in Link's hand and gives him a vision. Link pulls out the ocarina Zelda gave him in the Temple of Time and starts playing it. Ganon, getting weaker as Link plays the ocarina, charges out Link and causes him to drop the instrument and Master Sword to the ground. Link uses his shield to block Ganon's blows, but he's way too powerful. Ganon picks up Link and is about to deliver a final blow, but before he's able to, he is delivered a hit to the face by a masked individual. Ganon turns his focus to the masked being, who grabs the ocarina and starts playing it. As Ganon is focused on the masked individual, Link grabs the Master Sword and delivers a powerful blow on Ganon, catching him off guard. After a few more hits from the Master Sword, Ganondorf is defeated. Link and the masked individual make their way out of Death Mountain. As they leave, Link asks the individual what their name is so he can thank them properly for their help. They say their name is Sheik, and as they speak, Link has a faint feeling he knows them from somewhere. Link shrugs this off and thanks Sheik before making his way back to Hyrule Castle. Link returns to Hyrule Castle and reunites with Zelda, and then the movie ends. An important part to getting a movie to happen is for there to be a studio to bring it to life. I feel Nintendo would want to stick to having the same studio making all their films, so that crossover films don't have to worry about licensing problems, so it's entirely possible Nintendo will just stick with Illumination. The problem I see with this though is Illumination is known for having more lighthearted animated films, and while it isn't impossible for them to change it up for this movie, I don't really think it would fit their style of animation. So if it isn't Illumination, who can make this film? I personally feel like DreamWorks would be a great film studio to make the Legend of Zelda movie. DreamWorks has experience in making fantasy type movies with Shrek and Puss in Boots, so I definitely feel their style would fit an animated Zelda film. I also think it'd be cool if DreamWorks did this film if they made the animation similar to how it was in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, because I think this animation style would work very well in this film. If Nintendo did go to DreamWorks for this film, it's unlikely they would have to worry about licensing problems when it comes to crossover movies, as DreamWorks Studios is part of NBC Universal, which is the same for Illumination, so going to DreamWorks for this movie shouldn't cause too many problems. With that being said, I've talked for long enough, so I want to give you guys a break from my voice for a bit. In this episode, I'm joined by a content creator who makes some pretty crazy content. He's a fellow member of the Nintendo Trio, a channel consisting of me and 2 other Nintendo content creators, and he's made a video about hating The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for some reason. Anyways, I'm gonna turn the mic over to Crazytendo and let him talk about what he'd like to see in The Legend of Zelda movie.
Thank you, Chris. The Legend of Zelda series is one of my favorite series in gaming, and if we were to get a Zelda movie, I would love to just see a perfected version of Hyrule. I want the world to have so many nods and Easter eggs from the games, like, say, Lon Lon Ranch from Ocarina of Time. Hyrule has gone through so many different versions throughout the games, but for a movie, I think they can make it super big and one of the best versions of Hyrule in general. If they do go with a classic adventure-style movie, they could go to awesome, well-known locations like Death Mountain, for example. But I really want there to be a lot of light in these locations so that they're not like, oh, okay, Death Mountain, it's a volcano, that's it. I really want them to embrace the spirit of these places from the games. Depending on what game or games the movie takes inspiration from, there would be different specifics of what I'd like to see. But just in general, I want to see a big, diverse world for Link and the other characters to explore and travel through. I just want Hyrule to appear as a big kingdom in this movie rather than it's a castle and not much else. I want to thank Crazytendo for letting me be part of this video, and I'll let him take the spotlight once again.
Thank you, Crazytendo. As he mentioned, having a fleshed out world of Hyrule rather than just a world with a few key locations would be awesome to see. I think having a large, vast world similar to the one in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom would be so cool, and would allow for there to be new locations visited in future sequels. I want to thank Crazytendo for joining me in this one, and with that said, let's talk about the post-credit scenes we can see in the Legend of Zelda movie. Similar to the Mario movie prediction, I feel there will be 2 post-credit scenes. However, instead of setting up future films in the overall MCU, I think these would be a way to set up future films in this world. The first one I think will be Zelda and Link returning to the Temple of Time with the Triforce. Zelda tells Link this should be a good place to hide the Triforce, as it's an area little known about, so there shouldn't be too much of a risk of anyone finding it. The 2 make their way back to the castle, and when they make it back, Link tells Zelda about the masked individual named Sheik who helped Link in the battle against Ganon, and asks her if she's ever heard of this individual. Zelda tells Link she has never heard of Sheik, and that he should go back to his quarters and rest since he just had an intense battle. Link heads back to his quarters, and after he leaves, Zelda looks in her wardrobe and pulls out the Sheik outfit, making sure it isn't ruined, and smiles to herself with the scene ending after that. The second scene will take us back to Death Mountain to where the body of Ganondorf lies, looking lifeless. The camera slowly zooms in on Ganon with the ominous music playing in the background. Eventually, the camera zooms in on Ganon's face, and his eyes start glowing a bright red, with the screen going black right after. The last thing I want to look at today is what you guys want to see in the Legend of Zelda movie. Similar to the Mario movie prediction, I asked you guys on the Discord server and community tab, and you guys had some pretty interesting responses once again. All of this video's ideas come from the Discord, with the first one coming from It's Josiah, who said, I want an adaptation of Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, or Breath of the Wild. As you can see with my plot, I did take some heavy inspiration from Ocarina of Time, while adding some stuff original to this movie, and just not basing it off of Ocarina of Time. I think this game does a good job giving an origin to Link, so I decided to base the plot on it a bit because of that. Akari said, I want Link not to be carried by the Master Sword in the movie. I don't think Link will be carried by the Master Sword, but I feel like the Master Sword along with Ocarina will end up being key parts to defeating Ganon. Gameblock says, it would also be cool to have Demise curse the hero and the princess to a cycle without end, like in Skyward Sword, and then we see as he says that, flashes of all the different games. While introducing Demise would be super sick, I don't think he'd be part of the first film, as this film is used to develop key characters to the franchise, but I can definitely see Demise making his appearance on the big screen in a future film. And our last response comes in from Nintendo, who says, I want to see the champions from Breath of the Wild included. And the land of Hyrule itself from that game is stunning, so it has to be there as well. Also, side on please, and Mifa to be main of interest. I feel like the world of Hyrule in the MCU could be as expansive as Breath of the Wild. And while the champions I don't think would be in the first film, I could see them appearing in a sequel much like Demise. I really don't think if Mifa makes an appearance though, she would be a love interest for Link. And Ro, what is your obsession with Sidon? Chill out, dude. And that concludes this episode of creating the Nintendo Cinematic Universe. Much like the Mario movie prediction, I'm not working on these films, so I don't know for sure how they would end up, but this is how I would lay it out if I were in charge of making these movies. I want to thank Crazytendo once more for joining me in this episode, and if you haven't yet, please go check out this man's channel. He makes amazing content, and I would appreciate it if you guys went to show him some support. If you made it this far into the video, I want to thank you for watching, and if you haven't yet, consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel to get notified when another one of these videos release. If you want to see another video by me, there is a video on screen now where I predict the last 2 ways of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, which I think is a video you would enjoy. With that being said, I'm the biggest noob on YouTube, Crazytendo, signing off, and I hope you have an amazing day.